Big news out of the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice of the United States of America just issued a rare statement on President Trump's call to impeach the judge in his Alien Enemies Act case. I want to go straight to Paula Reed. Paula, wow, this is a very big deal.
This is a huge deal. Here you have Chief Justice John Roberts appearing to push back on statements President Trump made earlier today, suggesting that a judge, James Boasberg, who of course temporarily blocked deportations by the Trump administration, or at least tried to, should be impeached. And here the Chief Justice writes, "For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose." Now, this is, of course, a very short statement, but it says so much, Dana, because earlier today, in a Truth Social post, President Trump sort of went on a tangent about how angry he was at this judge and saying this judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. And this comes just several days after Boasberg tried to temporarily block some deportations by the Trump administration, and the Trump administration did not abide by his order to turn around 2 planes that had already taken off. And in a pretty heated hearing yesterday, the Justice Department insisted that they did not need to abide by the judge's oral order from the bench, something the judge took issue with. And then even when the judge had issued a written order, they still did not comply. And in court yesterday, they were arguing that the reason they did not need to comply with that written order is because they said that President Trump has a broad executive authority when it comes to foreign affairs.
Wow. Did Chief Justice Roberts just tell Trump that he's not really a king? Welcome back, everybody. That was amazing news this afternoon. That hit every feed, and it just drove me wild. Chief Justice Roberts, along with the help of what I'm going to refer to as the mom on the Gang of 9, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, it seems that with her help, Justice Roberts has found his spine again. He is willing to tell Donald that he's not really a king. He's just kind of like, you know, the Burger King king. You get to have it your way until I say no. But I digress. Trump can't just go out and falsely claim that we're at war. We were originally told it was 14. Now it appears to be a couple of hundred people that he put in Nicaraguan prisons. Now, I can't say for sure. If someone came to me and said, "Are you sure there's no Americans in there?" I couldn't honestly say that. I couldn't stick up for that point. But I don't understand why he would want to do that. He's focused on the gangs. But I digress. He can't just unilaterally declare war on anyone. It has to be done by an act of Congress. You know, they used the president during the Vietnam War and said, yeah, we're going to have a conflict during the Vietnam War. And it was a war without a declaration. Congress refused to call it a war, although they did help support it. This time, I don't hear anybody from the right or the left, not a peep in almost 12 hours now, of anybody offering to set up a declaration of war. Trump lawyers in court today with federal court, and I'll get the judge's name and put it down here down below. I forget his name. It begins with a B, I think. But he had told them not to deport those people until he had a chance to see what was going on with them. I think he wanted the same thing. He just wanted to do the last-minute check to make sure that, yes, they are all gang members. We don't want them here. They do have to go. I'm on Trump's side on that we get rid of these people. Why are we paying to keep them in our prisons, you know, when we can give them back to wherever they came from? But the method that was used is, shall we say, shady, which kind of blends with everything else that the Orange Jesus does. The Trump lawyers openly defied the federal court judge today and tried to state that, well, some of this is under national security and you're not entitled to see it. And the judge quickly reminded him that as a federal judge, he had top secret clearance and was already allowed and approved to see things under national security and what they call in camera. In other words, he gets to look at it alone, review it. It doesn't go onto the public docket. It doesn't go out to anybody else. He never discusses it with anybody else. He goes back to the lawyers, and then they continue their discussions, their discovery, their findings. And then when the lawyer couldn't get that, and then he said that, well, some of this hasn't been disclosed. I don't have all the information. We'll have to get other people in here to do it. So the judge finally just called it and said, hey, you know what? This week, even though you've got the people out of the country, now I want to know whether you lied to me or not. And we're going to have moment-by-moment discussion, and we're going to have discovery on when the planes left the airport, when the planes left the airspace, when they landed at the other end, when they took off. Did they take off before I was done? Did they take off after I was done? We're going to discover all that. And in the midst of all that, Donald went running to the Supreme Court via his Truth Social, demanding that the Supreme Court do something about this federal judge. Now, let's just stop there for just a minute. He demands via Truth Social that he wants something done about this judge to the Supreme Court, acting as though he was their boss, as though if you don't get this done for me, I'm not going to be happy with you. I want this guy impeached. And Chief Justice said, no, not for you, not today. You're not a king. God, I never thought that Chief Justice Roberts properly, would have a set, would find his spine. But again, I think Mom on the justices, Amy Coney Barrett, is his leading supporter. This is just another example of the petulant little whining child in the supermarket, throwing himself on the floor and slamming his hands and feet into the ground, screaming, thinking that if he does this, he'll get what he wants. And he's not getting the attention that he wanted. Donald's not used to the word no. He's not used to the word no from his family. He's not used to the word no from the law. He's not used to the word no from women. He's not used to the word no from anybody. He's never been told no. He's never been slapped down. He's never been treated like the schoolyard bully that he is. And most of us know how to handle a schoolyard bully. But I digress. It's a little beyond schoolyard times. He has made a laughingstock of himself and of our country to many of our allies because of the way he acts, because of the words that he uses, because of the illiterate phrases that he uses, and because of just his arrogance and his ignorance of world politics. But while he's doing that, there was something else going on in the world that was kind of important today. The new Prime Minister from Canada, and I don't know his name yet, so I will look it up, and it will be down here for you all before I publish this podcast. He decided that he was going to break tradition that had been going on for decades, and that the new Prime Minister of Canada, his first visit will be to the White House in the United States as their best ally. Yeah, he didn't do that.
Let's start the Times, perhaps, with Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, breaking with tradition and travelling to Europe, not the United States, on his first official foreign trip. Carney was greeted warmly by the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and then in London, Carney met with his British counterpart, Sir Keir Starmer. The emphasis on Canada and Europe standing together side by side. And Carney did not hold back in his criticism of the US president.
Nobody's come out forcefully and said those comments about the 51st state are just not on. Do you think that our traditional allies are not sticking their necks out because they're concerned that if they say something that'll anger President Trump, that they'll be next?
I think I would take seriously what the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom said today. I don't think one needs to respond to every comment about another country. Look, we can stand up for ourselves.
Today, he kind of thumbed his nose at Donald, and he flew to France and England and was met by the EU very, very warmly, and he had a very frank discussion. Now, the way he put it is very similar to what my father used to say, words of advice to a young man at the time. The Prime Minister from Canada stated that quite politely and quite responsibly and in a proper political setting, stated that just because there's someone out there yelling at you doesn't mean you have to yell back. Just because Donald's out there running his mouth doesn't mean you need to have a reply for him, because most of the time what he says is nonsense. My father used to say that just because you hear an ass in the field braying doesn't mean you need to bray back. He got his point across to me when I was a very young man. I understood that. And it's so fitting today to hear the Prime Minister from Canada say the same thing, only in far more appropriate words. The world is watching. Make no mistake, people. Our allies are worried about us. Our enemies look at us from a different light. Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, the gentleman from, and I call him a gentleman only to be polite, Assad, and the people that are running the South American regimes look at us as a possible ally now, while England, Canada, Greenland, Panama, and arguably even China, who has been a trade partner for decades, going back into the 70s, when they were a trade partner with us and we could keep an even peace at night. We could sleep well, even during the Cold War. They no longer look at us with that same eye of confidence. And I can guarantee you, we've had this discussion before, I can guarantee you the intelligence agencies from around the world will not share critical information about their assets, about their whereabouts, and possibly maybe even turning over some of our assets and our information to other people. They aren't going to share it with us. There's no way. But there's the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Yeah, I think that's what they're doing for us. Anyways, folks, it's not going to be a long rant tonight. I just need to get my visual picture queued up in your mind of a small toddler who's out of control on the supermarket floor, kicking and screaming, and mommy, rightfully so, leaves him behind to lay there kicking and screaming on the floor until he finds out that he's not getting what he wants by his temper tantrums. And that's what the Supreme Court just told Donald today. You're a petulant little brat. Shut up, sit down, and the answer is no. But I digress. Anyways, again, I want to remind you all of our brothers and sisters in the southern states, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, that were devastated by the tornadoes and the storms over this last week. Again, I remind you that your local Red Cross is able to help them. I haven't heard too much about FEMA down there. I have heard that one of the states did get a call from the president saying that he was going to see what he could do with some aid. But there was no mention of FEMA. So I recommend again to you, your brothers and sisters are out there, contact the Red Cross. Whether you give blood, whether you give money, whether you give perishables, whether you give clothing, whether you just give a blanket that you're no longer using. It's something. And again, I'm going to remind everybody that we at Unscripted Political Discourse support the nonviolent movement, marches, and events for the 5051 organization. With that, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to ask you to give me a thumbs up down there, just down below. It helps with the algorithm. I'm seeing that many people are watching and that it's only 75% non-subscribed, 25% subscribed that are coming back. So I don't mind. But do me a favor. Give me the thumbs up. That helps the algorithm. That helps us build our channel. And I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night. With that, people, have a wonderful evening and good night.